Hello everyone and welcome back to a Football Forecast. In today's video, I'll be previewing Newcastle United versus Arsenal. If you enjoy what you see from this video, please like the video and subscribe. And this really is an important game between two sides who I think have had a mixed start so far. Arsenal have been pretty good in most games, but they've struggled in these bigger games. They struggled against Liverpool, they struggled against Manchester City, they struggled against Man United despite winning. So Arsenal were under pressure, I think, to win this game in terms of getting themselves, ensuring the fact that they don't fall out of the title race too early or put themselves in a position where they might not even be able to compete. And for Newcastle have struggled so far. Let's be honest, Newcastle haven't been at the best that they want to be, but in these sort of big games, I do feel like Newcastle United had the potential to get up for it. One reason why Newcastle United shouldn't be worried about the prospect of playing Arsenal is because of their record against them at St James's Park. It's excellent. It really is. It's actually a top record against these sort of this team. It's 4 wins out of the last 5. The loss they had, I think, was right at the end of the season, as you see in May, and Arsenal managed to win it. But apart from that, Newcastle have been largely dominant in this fixture, and recently they've been absolutely dominant, winning the last 3. As well as this, they're very good. They've got a very good defence, which Arsenal have really struggled to break down, which I'm going to discuss later about how I think Arsenal should go about this. How would I break down that side? And also, if that's not going to happen, sort of what I think Arteta will do and what Arteta's going to try do against Newcastle. So who is potentially out for this encounter against Arsenal? Well, Fabian Schär is a concern. Jacob Ramsey and Johan Wissa are definitely out, but I think Schär would be important for Newcastle United. But if so, Chow performed really well against Barcelona, but then struggled against Bournemouth, so we don't really know what we'll see from him. But I do think that's still a pretty good defence for Newcastle United. Then Gabriel Jesus, Kai Havertz, Martin Odegaard, Noni Madueke, and Piero Hincapié is the players potentially out for Arsenal. Out of those ones, you'd say Odegaard maybe, but you'd definitely say Havertz, Jesus, Madueke, all definitely out. Hincapié might not be out, but he's only probably going to play a squad role and won't really affect the lineup that I think Arsenal will go with. So here is the form of the two sides going into this game. Newcastle United have had pretty mixed form. The wins they've had have been against Bradford and Wolves, both at home. Bradford in the cup and Wolves, who are literally rock bottom. So it's not been a great start really for Newcastle. They got a 0 against Bournemouth and a 0 against Leeds, both when they set up at 5 at the back, which I guess does raise a question: will Newcastle United set up at 5 at the back, knowing that they've been very good, very defensively solid in that sort of system? But at the same time, they've also been very solid in the games they haven't done that. The only game they really sort of let it go was Liverpool, where they conceded 3, but Liverpool can do that to most sides, and they also had 10 men for a lot of the game. And then they lost to Barcelona. I mean, at the end of the day, Barcelona are a different class to both of these sides. For Arsenal have had decent form. They won against Port Vale, they won against Bilbao, and they won against Nottingham Forest. Where they've struggled though is those big games, these sort of games against Newcastle United, the games where you go, this is a test for Arsenal to show their credentials of actually being in a title race. So now let's go in and say how I think Arsenal will set up, what I would do, and what sort of little tactical changes can Arteta make to basically exploit Newcastle in this game. So this would be my Arsenal lineup against Newcastle, and it is different definitely to what I think Arteta would do. So in goal, I'd go with obviously David Raya, then I'd go Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, and Calafiori. I think there is an argument for Lewis Scully, maybe Ben White, but I do think this is Arsenal's best backline right now, and there is a reason for me picking Calafiori over Lewis Scully, and that is because I want Calafiori making sort of these runs up here. But I do think there is a way that Newcastle can diffuse this, and that is by playing Anthony Elanga and basically letting Elanga sort of be their outball, and that could force Calafiori to drop back and have to stay a bit more in his like a traditional left back position than sort of playing as a wing back. Then Zubamendi, Rice, and Nwaneri. Now this is where it becomes interesting. Zubamendi, Rice, fine. I think you need Zubamendi and Rice to sort of control the game for whatever Arsenal are going to look to do. But I've picked Ethan Nwaneri in this team because I actually think, well, Martin Odegaard's out. Now there is, if Martin Odegaard's fit, then I'd probably consider Odegaard. But I actually think Nwaneri suits his position so well. And I think this is how you can get more attacking threat. Instead of playing Mikel Merino, which is just a static midfield. I don't think it really works for Arsenal. Go with the attacking youth. Go with Wanyeri, someone that can create. Because at the end of the day, Arsenal are going to dominate the ball, at least for majority of the game. The first 30 minutes, I think they'll struggle to control it. But after that, Newcastle's press will die down. We've seen this against Liverpool and Barcelona. And I'll go into this. So that during that sort of 15 minutes that you'll get probably before half-time, and there will also be definitely more periods in the game, definitely more in the second half of the leagues get tired. Arsenal need their creative players on the pitch, so I'm going with Wanyeri, someone who can definitely break down low blocks. He's the sort of player you want, and my other creative player is Eze. I'm not a huge fan of Eze off the left. That's sort of what my perspective. I prefer Eze sort of in this area of the pitch, but I'm not convinced there's a better left winger option. I don't think this is the sort of game for Martinelli. And Arsenal at the end of the day didn't sign a left winger in the summer, which is something I was critical of. And the other thing is I wouldn't make Eze play as a touchline winger. I'll let him invert, and then that will allow Calafiori to provide the overlap. So Eze still in sort of this sort of area, the area of the pitch that actually Eberechi Eze should be operating in. And because he's got Declan Rice protecting him, Declan Rice can he doesn't have to go forward as much, which gives you that defensive solidity if you want. But also Rice can be a box crashing midfielder if needed. Then I'm going Gyökeres and Saka, and we're going to be, if I'm Arsenal here, I'm going attacking. I'm trying to get the best out of Gyökeres. Maybe you concede a goal or two, but you can score 3 or 4. That's how the mentality needs to be, in my opinion, for Arsenal in this game. Will we see this mentality? Probably not. Let's be honest, it is Mikel Arteta, who I've been critical of the past of not being that attacking-minded manager. So then this is the alternative lineup. This is not the one I actually think that Arteta will go with. This is, once again, a slightly different lineup. And this would have been Eze here, then you would move Rice here, and then you would move Martinelli. Where's Martinelli? You'd move Martinelli over to here, and Martinelli will have more of the freedom. Once again, I want him sort of getting more into sort of those sort of attacking areas, because I don't like Martinelli as a touchline winger, because he's quite literally not a touchline winger, and I think that's where you get the best out of Martinelli. And if for the other formation with Eze off the left and Wanyeri on the right 10, then I'm definitely using Martinelli as a bench option, as my first bench option for whoever's tired. Run it, whoever's got tired legs. It might be Trippier, might be on the pitch. Run it, Trippier. Basically, run it the Newcastle United lineup. That's what I want from Martinelli off the bench. But that would be my alternative lineup. That's what I could also see him doing. Eze, Rice, and Zubimendi. And I'm playing Eze on the left. I'm not doing Rice on the left, Eze on the right, because where does Eze best operate? In these pockets. That's where Eze is at the best, in my opinion. And then finally, this is what I actually think Arteta will go with. I do think he will start with Eberechi Eze in this game. I think you have to. You need the creativity. I don't think he's going to make that mistake again. But I do think he's going to go once again with the midfield of Rice, Marino, and Zubimendi. And this midfield can work in a certain way. And the way it works is by having really attacking wing-backs. So Timber isn't that really. White, I don't think it's even that. You need to have a really good cross. Basically what Liverpool had with Robertson and Trent, and that's what you need. And then you need wingers that like to get into the box, like inverting, which Saka can definitely do. Saka's very good at that. And you could do Martinelli. Martinelli can do that. And then you need a striker that can link up play. Basically what Roberto Firmino did for Liverpool for so long. He was excellent at it. And that could be Jesus. That could have been Havertz. I think Havertz and Jesus are the only two players that can probably do that, but not quite to the level. Gyökeres definitely can't do it. So basically, I think Arteta's trying to do something that his squad can't do, and that's because he wants a sort of really defensive-minded midfield that's just basically very good at like pressing, energy, but it doesn't quite have that attacking creativity, and you need attacking creativity unless you've got a system like that with basically your fullbacks are your creativity. So that is why I don't think that system is working for Mikel Arteta. Please let me know your thoughts on what I've just said. Do you agree with me, or do you think there's something else? I don't think Arsenal's problem is scoring goals. I think Arsenal's problem is creating goals. So I'm picking creative players, but also I'm picking a system that I think can actually get the best out of each player to create chances. That's what I think Arsenal need to do. So this is my Newcastle United lineup, and I think this is also what Eddie Howe will do. He'll go in goal, he'll go Nick Pope. I don't think there's any real reason to change Nick Pope for Ramsdale. I think Ramsdale could eventually start over him, but for now, I'll just stick with Pope. Then Trippier, Shah, Burn, Livramento. I mean, as long as Shah's not injured, then he will start. Trippier and Livramento is a bit of an interesting one though, because you could go Lewis Hall, but I worry about Lewis Hall versus Saka, and I don't worry as much about Trippier then having Trippier playing, Livramento moving to the left, and Trippier versus Eze, because I think Trippier can handle him despite the lack of pace. Then I've gone Tonali, Joelinton, and Guimaraes. This is taking into account Bruno Guimaraes. That is, this is taking into account the fact that I don't think Newcastle will play five at the back. He's done it in the past quite well against Arteta, but I do wonder if this is the right decision. Maybe just stick with something that you know. The five at the back's been good at keeping clean sheets, but not been very good going forward. Then I've got him with Elanga, Voltemade, and Gordon. I think another question is, will he start Elanga? Will he start Voltemade? I think you have to go Gordon, Voltemade, Elanga. That's what I think. Elanga, I think, is an absolute must for this game, and this is why. So this is how they would set up, and this is how they'd set up probably to defend in the first 30 minutes, in terms of they would have this sort of high press going. This is what Newcastle do. All these players sort of pressing high, and this is what they're going to do. Everyone will just step up, do like this, move up. Everyone will just move up and form a great pressing structure. But eventually this pressing structure, you tire out. So hopefully for Newcastle, you'd be 1-0 up by this. But once it tires out, Newcastle United have had real problems against Barcelona and Liverpool in terms of working out how they're supposed to defend without the press. And it's cost them goals, because this is when the top teams create. Now, Arsenal might not be as creative as Liverpool and Barcelona, but they're still going to be able to knock the ball around and sort of dominate the game after this. So then what often happens is you see Newcastle United basically move into this shape, and everyone, and the wingers come back, Voltemade comes back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave Elanga up here. Elanga's just he's going to have to defend to an extent, but he's more going to be the outball. Voltemade sort of just drops into the midfield, creating sort of a three in the midfield. Bruno can move to the right, and Joelinton off the left, and Tonali, then Voltemade, and Gordon. This will still be really solid, but what it does is it stops like the Calafiori, who's basically their fullback, attacking up and creating allowing Eze to sort of invert, allowing Arsenal another sort of way of attacking. So that takes out one of their players, as well as giving you a brilliant outball in Elanga, because Elanga is so good on the counter. He's extremely quick, and I think this is a way Newcastle United can get out, because I love Newcastle United's pressing structure, but everyone knows after about 30 minutes it tires out. We're seeing too much evidence of it now, and we're going to see this once again, I think. And I think that's where the game will be won and lost for Newcastle. Can they find ways to defend without the press? And if they do this, they will win the game. If they don't, then I think they could be in for a tough night, because Arsenal will just find ways when they need to dominate the game, and they'll find that goal probably. But in saying this, Arsenal aren't great at creating. So this gives Newcastle United, for me, a good chance at winning this game. I think Eddie Howe might not go with this. This is very much just an out there tactic, something I think that he could adapt to. And I do think that he'll do something completely different. But I think whatever Eddie Howe does will work. I think he would sort this out by now. He's realised this doesn't work for the whole game. It can't work for the whole game, and we need another way of sort of sitting in. And also against Arsenal, they're not as effective at breaking down low blocks. And for that reason, I'm going to go with 2-0 to Newcastle United. If you enjoy this video, please subscribe, but also let me know your prediction. Do you agree with me? Do you think Newcastle United can win this game 2-0?